Hi, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with another video for my SotDL Talk series. And in this video, I'm going to depart from what I've been doing up to this point, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about a series of tokens that I'm creating for Roll20. Um, I I use Roll20 almost exclusively for my games because 99% of my gaming now is online, not by choice, but by necessity. But that's okay. I like Roll20 and I like the online gaming experience. I prefer face-to-face tabletop gaming, but when and if that's not available, then the Roll20 experience is suitable for my needs. So anyway, that's just me. But when I do run a game on Roll20, I do like to use maps and tokens because I'm a visual guy. I'm not a theater of the mind guy. I prefer people having something to focus on visually, not only listening to me droning on and on about, these descriptions and, these NPCs and their stupid voices. I want people to look at something and relate what I'm saying to what's going on the screen. That's just my personal preference. I know there's plenty of people that prefer doing just theater of their mind, and that's cool. I'm fine with that. It's just not my jam. So in my experience in running Shadow of the Demon Lord, I found that there's not a whole lot of tokens available that suit my needs for running some of the monsters that are unique to this game. So I wanted to take the opportunity to create a set for Roll20 using some of the ones that I created for myself, and also just kind of creating some other ones that are in the core rulebook that others might find useful. If this set is successful, then I might make more sets based on monsters and supplements and things like that. Um, so anyway, the reason I'm doing this isn't a self promotion necessarily, but it's really just to get feedback. This is my first time contributing anything to Roll20's marketplace, and I don't want to contribute a piece of crap that nobody's going to want to use because the quality sucks. So I really want to get some feedback, and without giving away my first set of tokens, I do want to just kind of share it here and have you guys, if anybody is watching this, to just drop me some feedback. I'm on the Shadow of the Demon Lord G Plus community, so you can find me there under DM Nell, um, or you can place a uh, your comment in YouTube because I'm going to post this on YouTube. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump over to my token page. All right, and this is a sampling of the tokens I'm going to put up on my Roll20 in my first Roll20 set. And some of these are recognizable, some are not, because some of them aren't from Shadow of the Demon Lord, but rather they are from a previous D&D game that I ran that was for the Age of Worms campaign, if anybody remembers that from the old Dungeon Magazine Paizo days. And but still, the Age of Worms is something that I've always thought would be great for Shadow of the Demon Lord. It would fit right in, basically. It's an interworld apocalyptic scenario. It's got a lot of horrific things in it, and so it's a perfect match. So I created some of these tokens a while back when I was running that campaign for personal use, and I figured, why keep it to myself when some other people out there might be using um, the Age of Worms, or even better yet, they might be using this gem, which is Elder Evils. It's a book that was created for Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition, and if you'll look closely, you'll notice a very recognizable name down there under the title. Robert J. Schwab is the author of this book, and he also happens to be the author of, or the creator of, Shadow of the Demon Lord. So, Mr. Schwab, I believe, was practicing his art for and honing his vileness for Shadow of the Demon Lord with this book. And this to kind of take a moment to pitch this book, this book is an excellent Shadow of the Demon Lord supplement. Even though it's written for D&D, the ideas that you get out of this book are perfect. I mean, these are more shadows of the Demon Lord. You could definitely pluck any one of these elder evils and use it as a shadow for a campaign. So, for example, you've got one of my favorites, Atropos, who is the world-born dead. Father Limmick, which is some kind of weird ice god. You've got the Hulks of Zaretha, which are really the monuments of Easter Island that come to life and start killing everything on the planet. What else? You got the Leviathan, which is a giant sea monster. You've got Pandora, which is some madness type creature. Ragnoro, the mother of monsters. Sertrus, which is some kind of serpent god. And then the worm that walks, which happens to be another name for Caius, which is the main bad guy in the Age of Worms campaign. So, and Zargon. I like to think of Zargon as the god that Conan brought to life in Conan the Destroyer, that horrible sequel to Conan. The Barbarian, the movie, back, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyway, he looks a lot like the statue that Horn brought to life. But I don't think it has anything to do with that. That's just what my mind likes to correlate. So anyway, let's talk about some of these tokens that I've created and what they are. So let's start up here in the upper left-hand corner, and that dwarfish-looking thing with the fishbowl on its head is a creature out of the core rulebook, and it's called a hood. Now, the hood is described as a humanoid that wears this big, heavy cloak with a hood. It resembles a dwarf, and if you're looking at it from a distance, you would mistake it for a dwarf. But once you get up close and you peer under the hood, or the hood's peeled back, you'll see that they don't have a head. They have a sphere that's filled with this murky liquid, and inside this liquid are these lamprey-like eels that are swimming around, and they control this body. And so the hood is just a real creepy, weird creature, and there's absolutely nothing that represents that token-wise, other than you could get a dwarf, I suppose, a hooded dwarf, which is actually what I had to use when I ran Tales from the Demon Lord, because hoods are featured in one of the adventures in that game, or in that campaign. So I had to use just a dwarf token, which I hated, because I like my tokens to represent the creature that it is. I want it to look like the creature that it is, because I'm a visual guy, so I want the people that are seeing my maps to see what they actually see, or at least something very close to it. So I created the hood, and I have this one, which is unhooded, and then I have another one which has the hood drawn, that I'll include in the set as well. So you can see it's got the fishbowl head. It's got a fake beard and mustache that kind of comes out from under the hood to make you think it's a dwarf, but it's not really a dwarf. Okay, so that is the first one. The second one is a horned ogre, and this bad boy is on the cover of the Shadow of the Demon Lord book. And how could I go and make a set without creating a horned ogre? Now, you might think there's a lot of ogre tokens out there, but none of them really have horns. So, again, I want this thing to look like a horned ogre, so I created a horned ogre. The only thing I didn't do is put the Demon Lord tattoo on his chest, and I figure, if somebody's creative enough, they can add that if they want. But or maybe I'll create a variant and add it to the set that has the tattoo on it. I don't know. We'll see. But at any rate, it's got a meat cleaver in one hand, and it's got its big ass maul in the other hand, just like on the cover of the core rulebook. So that is the horned ogre. Next one over is one of my own creations, and that is the something that I like to call a hell cow. I actually created this creature for a game that I ran using the the adventure that was written for Shadow of the Demon Lord called the Demon's Wet Nurse. And in that particular adventure, there isn't any creature called a Void Cow, but a lot of that adventure takes place on a farm. So I wanted to have the scene. I had the scene in my head that just came to me when I was reading through it, and I wanted to bring that scene to life. So that what that scene basically entails is the heroes are walking up to the farmhouse on this farm, and they're walking through the farmyard, and they have to pass all these farm animals, cows, chickens, goats. They're all grazing in the grass, very innocent, pretty much ignoring the heroes. But once the heroes get past them, they hear something and turn around, and they see all these farm animals standing on their hind legs with glowing red eyes, obviously, possessed by some evil force. And I particularly had this vision of the cows standing on their hind legs because they would tower over everything else. And so I wanted to bring that vision somewhat to life by creating a token for it. So I created the Hell Cow. I wanted to make it, standing on its hind legs and have red glowing eyes. What I actually ended up doing was having fiery eyes and a fiery mane on the top of its head, just because and the creative urge hit me to do that. So that's what I did. And of course, the rows of pointy teeth as it snarls at the heroes at the up at the farmhouse. So anyway, I created that token for my own game, but I'm sure it could be used for other people's games as well. This creature right here is called an Oculus. It's in the core rulebook, and I've not used an Oculus yet, but I like the illustration that was in the book, so I wanted to create one. And I am writing an adventure currently that's going to feature an Oculus in it, or it's going to have an Oculus in it. It's not going to feature it. So I definitely wanted to create the token for that. All right, the next one down is Cayuse, or the Worm That Walks, and that's for the Age of Worms campaign. Again, I created that for my own use, but I thought it was something that would be useful for Shadow of the Demon Lord game. If you don't want to use them as Cayuse, you can always use them as some kind of some weird worm colony or something like that. All right, here's another creation of mine, which is a demon. And this demon has a little bit of a backstory, and that backstory involves me and a friend of mine when we were in high school. We were just getting into Dungeons and Dragons, and we had picked up an issue of Dragon Magazine. And in this issue, there was an article about creating your own demons, and it had a bunch of tables on how to randomly create a demon based on just rolling and meshing together these random bits. And we ended up doing that, and we created a crab demon, basically, that we ended up calling Lord Garigular. And so this was, going on 30 years ago that we did this. And I remembered this not too long ago. It came to me when I was thinking of some demons to use for a game. And I remembered that my friend and I had created this. So I gave him a call and I asked him if he still had the illustration that we put together, because we're both artists. And we did a drawing back then of Lord Garigular. And I remember in my head, but it's 30 years ago, and some of those brain cells have been corrupted by life. So I wanted to see if he still had the illustration, which he didn't. But he also recalled the drawing, so we kind of talked it out and tried to repiece together all those bits that we had randomly rolled on tables. And so I drew this token and tried to put it together to resemble the Lord Grigular that we created back in high school. So, you got the crab body, you've got the upper torso coming out of the top, the head, it's got these weird knobs on it. It's got the big pincers and the weird spider crab legs in the back. And he's got, humanoid arms. So that is Lord Garigular, and he's just a demon, so you can just use him as a demon, or you could use him as a demon lord, or you use him as some kind of weird crab monster. But anyway, that token would be included as well. Another thing that I needed for the Demon's Wet Nurse was a demon-possessed baby. And there's no demon-possessed baby tokens out there for use. Now, there is a piece of artwork in the adventure itself that you can kind of crop and use that as a token, but it's not very satisfying, for me anyway, to use a cropped picture of an illustration that clearly has other things, in it. Even though you crop it, it's got other crap, and I just don't like that. I like using actual tokens, so I went ahead and drew an evil-looking baby, and I like this so much that I actually created 3 versions that are slightly different from each other. But this is, if I were to rerun that Demon's Wet Nurse, which I plan to someday, I'm definitely going to use this to represent the baby in that adventure. All right, the next one down is this guy down here, and he is an NPC from the Age of Worms campaign. His name is the Faceless One in that adventure, but if you go by what Mr. Schwab wrote in Elder Evils, he could also be Edwin Tolstoff, who is an NPC that can be used in a Worm That Walks campaign, which is not the same as the Age of Worms. Age of Worms is a fully fleshed out 1 to 20 campaign, whereas the Worm That Walks article basically gives you ideas on how to create a campaign. It gives you NPCs and stuff like that. And so Edwin Tolstoff is one of the major NPCs driving the story for the Worm That Walks. So anyway, another plug for Elder Evils. So then that faceless one could he's another kind of colony worm creature, but he wears a mask to hide his face, and he wears robes to kind of hide the fact that his body's made up of worms. So it could be used as as some kind of cultist or some kind of colony creature also. And again, another thing from the Age of Worms is this giant green worm. And surprisingly enough, there are plenty of purple worm tokens out there, but there's no green worm tokens. So I wanted to create a giant green worm because there's lots of those in the Age of Worms campaign. All right, getting back to the Shadow of the Demon Lord monsters, this gem right here is referred to as the Ghastly Choir. And the Ghastly Choir is basically a bunch of faces stitched together that kind of crawls across the floor. And I don't know exactly what it does because I haven't run one yet, but it just looks creepy. The artwork in the book is creepy. And so I wanted to definitely wanted to represent that in my first Shadow of the Demon Lord token set. All right, next one up is called the Muttering Maul. And I know what you're thinking. Pull your head out of the gutter. This creature has a big mouth, at the top of its body that goes all the way down its torso. I drew it best that I could using the illustration of the book as my guide. And I can't help it if it turned out looking like part of the female anatomy. I can't help that. It is what it is. So accept it or delete it. But there you go. Muttering Maul. It's going to eat you from its big giant mouth and where its head should be. Okay, so the ones in the middle here, we got a Boggart. This creature is also in the core rulebook. I've not run one, and there's no illustration for one in the book, although there is a description. So I tried to create a Boggart based on the description in the book. And this is what I came up with. So hopefully you visualize this the same way that I did. If not, you can use this some other kind of weird multi-armed monster. And finally, you have the Lash Crawler, which is this eyeball that walks around on its lashes. I haven't run one of these either. I don't know exactly what they do. I did include them in a Shadow of the Demon Lord game that I ran, but the PCs bypassed that room, so I never got to actually run it. All right, so these are the some of the things that I'm going to include in my set. I have some other things that I'm still working on and finalizing, but I would, again, I'm looking for some feedback. If you like these and you want to, help a brother out and give me some feedback on how to make them better, or if you don't like them for some reason and you think that they can be improved, drop me a line in the comments on YouTube, and I would greatly appreciate it. So anyway, that is it for my video today, and I'm going to end this here. Maybe put up another video here in the next few days depending on how life frees up some time for me. So with that, let me give you a hearty hail, and I will let you all go. Thanks for joining. Have a good one.